Hey, everybody, welcome to today's Daily Distinction. I'm really glad you're here. As always, thank you for taking time out of your day and time out of your schedule here on April the 95th, whatever it might be. Really glad that you're here. So, how you doing? Hope you're having a good day today. Everybody's jumping on here. So glad of that. Got a couple really good things to talk to you about today. But before we get started, got a couple things to show you. Right before we went on, right before I hit the button here, the doorbell rang and it was a delivery. And so I don't know if my pal Ken Walls is watching, but Ken, if you are, I just want to say thank you because look what just came in. It is my Ken and Glenn and a guy named Scott official mug. If you're not watching it, it is our show that is on every Sunday night. It's called the Ken and Glenn Show with a guy named Scott. If you're new to watching, what happened was that Ken and Glenn were creating this show, and Ken, who I've known for a while, saw that I was online, asked me to join, and Ken was already a friend, but Glenn and I really hit it off, and so it was really cool. So we decided to have a show. So every Sunday night at 8 o'clock, we come on 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific, and we just have a great time. Sometimes we have guests, sometimes we don't. We had our second show this past Sunday, and we will be back on again live here this coming Sunday night at 8 o'clock Eastern. We have a great time, and I hope you like the show. I think it's a pretty good show. We've had some really great comments on it. So it is the Ken and Glenn Show with a guy named Scott. We have an official mug now, and you'll be able to have a mug too, hopefully in the future. We'll pass along more if that happens. So how's everybody doing today? Great to see you. Mike Schaefer, hello from Florida. Great to see you. Mike and I were pals at Franklin College. Mike did some great reporting for us during the Blizzard Blast, which is legendary at Franklin College. So great to see you, pal. I'm really glad you're here. Hope travel gets back to normal. We can connect sometime in Vegas. Yeah, Bruce, you're right. They are all blended together, aren't they? Somebody was asking me why I'm doing this 7 days a week. And I'm like, because I can't tell what Saturday is or what Tuesday is. Why not do it 7 days a week? I'm right here. So great to have you here. Got a couple things I want to talk to you about. And first off, got choked up telling you that. First off, my friend Glenn from the Ken and Glenn Show and a guy named Scott. Glenn is Glenn Morshower, who, if you didn't see when he was the guest here last week, we had a great conversation. Glenn is one of those guys. If you see him, you will know who he is. He's one of those great character actors that you might not know his name, but you'll go, "Oh my gosh, that is." Tammy and I are binging 24 after we became friends with Glenn, and there was a great scene he was with President David Palmer last night. So he was there. Glenn is just a great guy and a great actor. He's currently on The Resident on Fox. He was a regular on 24, made many appearances on The X-Files and others. Great actor, great guy. Well, anyway, so Glenn watched the replay yesterday of yesterday's program, and he called with a couple observations as we were just batting around some of the things we talked about yesterday. And he had this that just blew me away. And I wrote it down. I had to get it down. Glenn's quote was, "An unsolicited education seldom sticks." Is that a great line? An unsolicited education seldom sticks. And what he was talking about, in case you missed it yesterday, I was talking about that one of the challenges is that, as we talk about what we're going through right now, if Ford had a commercial that said, if you drive a Chevy, you're an idiot, it certainly wouldn't sell any more Fords. Instead, Chevy owners would go, you think I'm an idiot? I'll never buy a Ford. I'll go buy another Chevy just to spite you. But yet we have these people, as they're communicating right now, trying to say, if you won't get out in public, you must be afraid. Or if you're scared, stay home. And all of these negative kinds of things. And you can't influence somebody in that way. You'll never persuade anybody telling them that they're wrong or an idiot for believing what they believe. So what we have to do is to make certain that we're kinder to each other as we communicate. Ken had another great point, I thought, here, and he said, everything requires a host. Isn't that interesting? Everything requires a host. So in other words, enthusiasm is just out there, but it requires a host to really be meaningful, right? Enthusiasm without a host, without a person expressing that enthusiasm, is nothing. Anger requires a host. If you're not if no person is the host of that anger, it doesn't go anywhere. Everything requires a host, and anything dries up without a host, which means that anything that dries up brings an end to it, which is kind of interesting. If we want the virus to dry up, it happens because it doesn't have any hosts, not because of anything else. I thought that was an interesting perspective. Hey, Pam, good to see you here. Yeah, the blizzard blast, for those not from our part of the country, the blizzard blast was a show that Dan LeClaire and I did on radio when we were in college. This horrible blizzard, and classes were canceled and everybody was trapped on the college campus, and Chafe and a few others trekked through a blizzard, snow up to your eyeballs, to tell us which of the liquor stores still had beer available. Well, I found it. See, this is before we all had cell phones, right? So Mike took his life into his own hands to report on what stores had beer. So yes, I would call that reporting. Hey, Ken has a live show every day too. He had Kyle Wilson on today. Kyle Wilson is remarkable in his own right, and also is kind of the keeper of the flame of Jim Rohn that you've heard me talk about so many times. So if you get a chance to check out Ken's show, that's really an excellent stream to make sure that you see. Okay, got a couple things I want to talk to you about today. In terms of that, I want to follow up on what Glenn had said, and then want to follow up on a couple of other things. Today is the NFL draft, and sports fans are rejoicing because finally there's going to be some live something to do with sports that we can watch that will happen, and we don't know how it's going to happen, and it's so exciting because finally there's something sports as opposed to a rerun. So it will actually happen, and we get to see which players our favorite NFL teams draft, and that starts at 8:00 Eastern, 5:00 Central. And did you see they moved it from ESPN over to ABC? And how cool is that, right? That's how important it is that we have got to see this on ABC in terms of the NFL draft. So I got thinking, the teams have different approaches to how they're going to draft. Some say, you go for whoever the best player is on the board. That's who you got to take. So if you don't know anything about football, they pick of like college players who now are going to go professional and play for the NFL. So it's kind of like choosing up in a way. And I think that's part of why it appeals to every sports fan, because we get to see these very elite athletes going through what all of us went through on the playground as you're choosing up sides. So they're going to choose up. And we see all these elite athletes, and the teams then go in order and pick which of those will join their team. And so there's a couple different philosophies. One is, no matter what your team needs, that's not as important. You pick whomever the best player is of the players that are out there available. Okay, that's one choice. Another choice is you pick for position. If you need an offensive lineman, then you pick the best offensive lineman of those that are available in the pool. If you need a wide receiver, that's what you pick. So there's a couple of different approaches. You can go with whoever the best player is that's out there, or you draft to need. All right, that's one thing. Second thing is you think about, what do you want your team to become? What is the culture of your team? Some teams, like the team that just moved here to my city, the Raiders, man, they'll draft outlaws. They draft. Matter of fact, if you have had a bad reputation, you fit in with what the culture of the Raiders has been. Other teams, like the team that I root for, the Indianapolis Colts, have become very concerned about culture. Are you a fit in this culture? So with all of those things, best player of draft and need, culture, is that a fit? What's this person like? All of that comes into play. So it just got me curious in terms of what we talk about here on Daily Distinction. If there was a draft of qualities, the qualities that people have, everything from sincerity and humor to dedication, perseverance, all of those qualities. I have two questions for you. Number one, what quality would you draft for yourself? If you could go out and draft a quality and make it part of you, what quality would you draft to pull into your own set of skills and personality and approach? Would you draft for need, or would you draft for the importance of the quality? What quality would you want to bring into your life to either add to what you already have, right? Because there's teams with great wide receivers who'll still draft a wide receiver because we're going to take our strength and make it better. Or would you draft for need? What would you draft? That's the question I'll ask of you today. And the second one is a little more challenging. And by the way, please post it. We'll share it. What quality would you like to have? Would you add to the quality that you already possess, or would you add to a quality where you're weak? Are we better off to improve our strengths, or are we better off to balance our weaknesses? Because we're going to draft for quality. Are you going to, for qualities, are you going to draft for where you need to improve, or are you going to draft for what you already have and make it better? So post what you would do. We'll share this. We'll talk about this. I'll tell you where I would draft. And as you're thinking about that, and post that, and we'll come back to that in just a second. Got another thing for you here. I was listening yesterday to a speech, and this wasn't exactly what was said in the speech, but it inspired me to write this down, and I want to share it with you, and I want you to consider it, and I want to challenge you with it as we go through this pandemic and as we go through this challenging time. But I think this idea, I think this concept will work regardless. Okay, you ready? So here's what I wrote down. I'm not smart enough to be negative. Think about that for a minute. I'm not smart enough to be negative. Now, I realize when you first hear that, it might be easy to presume that I am suggesting that negative people are smarter and I'm not smart enough to get there. That's not what I mean at all. I am saying to you, I'm not smart enough to be negative because have you noticed that when we get to the negative side, we also tend to be more close-minded, but the positive side tends to be more open-minded. I don't think that's a bias because of being positive to begin with. I don't think that's being in the echo chamber. I don't think it's that. Here's what I think it is. Think about the researchers right now. Think about the researchers right now trying to come up with a vaccine. Think about the researchers right now trying to come up with something that we could take that would get us over the problem. I don't think those folks can be negative, because once you say, oh, it can't be done, then you close your mind to new opportunity. Make sense? Once you start being negative, you also shut down the flow of creativity and the flow of new ideas. If I say I could never afford a new car or a used car that I want or a house, once I say that, man, I shut down. I stopped looking. I stopped considering alternatives. I stopped realizing that if interest rates go down, the payments go down, I might be able to. Once I go negative, I shut down opportunity. I shut down thought. I shut down the opportunity that I'm going to discover something, Because one of the other things I've found through experience, I'm not saying I'm right, I'm just saying what I've observed. One of the things I've observed is once you get negative, you stop searching. You stop searching. You just believe that's the way it is, and I'm negative, and I've become convinced. But if you're positive, we tend to find better ways of doing things. If I tend to be positive about something, I tend to go out and try to find new. And see, I hope and I believe that the researchers right now are optimistic. They're positive, because once you're negative and you think it can't be done, you stop trying to do it. I mean, if you convince yourself that something can't be done, why would you continue to do it? One of the great old stories. There was an Olympian named Bob Richards who used to tell this story. He was a gold medalist in pole vault in the Olympic Games many, many years ago. And Bob Richards used to tell the story about Roger Bannister. Roger Bannister was the first person to run a mile in under 4 minutes in competition. There was this perceived barrier. Matter of fact, some scientists wrote that a human being could not run. It was physically impossible for a human being to run a sub 4 minute mile. Now, you think Roger Bannister read that and said, you can't do it, and then proceeded to continue to try to break the record? I think what he said, so we have to take for it, what he said was that he believed he could, and he set out to do it. And that positive approach, see, if he was negative, he never would have done it. It can't be done. Then I'm going to go out and do it. No, that's not the way it works. So interestingly, too, after Bannister broke the 4 minute mile record, which had never been done in human history, then it was broken like several more times in succession. Why? Because people that were negative, that thought it couldn't be done, now had to confront the fact that they were wrong. So they became positive and optimistic about it, and then they went out and did it. I'm not smart enough to be negative, because once you hit negativity, then you shut down the chance that there could be any other alternative. And I'm not smart enough to believe that what I think can't be improved. I want to suggest the same for you. That none of us here are smart enough to be negative. We need to choose to be positive, optimistic through all this. Hey, there's my great friend Richard Mellencamp from back home. Man, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Good to see you. Thank you for sharing. You are one of the special people I know. Richard, thank you so much. It means the world every time you say hello here, because you are amazing. You are the best. And when this thing gets done here, and I get back home to Jackson County, I certainly want to get a chance to say hello, because it has been way too long since we have connected. Michael Hunt, my friend, too, is here today. I appreciate that, man. Michael, I know from your social media posts that you've been going through some valleys here lately. So, man, I just want to pass along. Tammy and I think the world of you, and just want to pass that along. And man, you've got it right. It's impossible until it's not, right? It's impossible until it's proven wrong. And many speakers, and the first one I heard was my great friend, Dr. Nito Cobain, the president of High Point University, said that even the word suggests that you can do it. Because if you break that word down that Michael has posted here of impossible, it's I'm possible. Isn't that cool? I'm possible. So, right. Once it's proven, then it changes. So you're the best, man. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for walking. Hey, Charles, good to see you. A Good Walk Spoiled, by the way, is a great book. I love that book. It's one of my favorite sports books of all time. And Charles is exactly right. It talks about a golfer who gets so mad he tosses his clubs into the water. A pro walks by and says, "You're not good enough to get that mad." The club's got nothing to do with it, man. You are not good enough to be that mad. I love that. So I'm not smart enough to be negative. I at my level, I can only be positive, because it means I'm going to continue to search for something new to learn and a way to improve. So if you can improve, if you can draft to quality, into your life, what would that quality be? If you could draft a quality into your life that would improve your life and would enhance your life, what would that quality be? Let's see what some folks are saying here, because it's kind of interesting what we've got. Let's see. Ken says, "Hey, and Ken, thanks for watching." And no, I didn't take you were promoting. I just took that you were sharing there. I love that. I would draft to fill in the weakness holes. Right? Where could you improve, and how could you fill the holes that are in there? Bruce says, when adding team members, I look for people with skills that I don't have. Yeah, on a movie set, everybody has a specialty. What would it be like with several different directors? And Bruce is a guru, somebody well known in the field of video production. So yeah, you're exactly right. Everybody has to contribute, and we don't need the lighting people to also be great actors, and we don't need the actors to also build the sets in most situations, right? Everybody has a role that they have to fill. So how would we go about doing that? By the way, Charles wants us to make sure that we say "Go Niners" as we talk about draft day here. Charles would say, "I would draft to improve." Yeah. So we're looking at some different aspects. The reason I want to bring this up is because there are some really interesting studies done by the Gallup organization. And the Gallup organization isn't writing about football, but it is writing about our qualities. And they have a program called the Strengths Finder that helps us ascertain what our particular strengths are, whether we're talking about in a personal relationship or a business relationship. And then what it says is we are far better working on our strengths than our weaknesses. And that's counterintuitive. And I thought at first it could not be right. But that's what the research shows, that I think is absolutely fascinating, is that you work more on your strengths to make them better than you work on your weaknesses. Now, think about it. I am not a detailed person when it comes to finances. If Tammy is watching this, she's throwing her hands in the air, going "Amen." I think in terms of communication. What we're doing right now, that's what I do. I think in terms of concepts, like what I'm expressing to you here about not being smart enough to be negative. That's what I do. That's what I think about. And I tend to think of that. And I'm not really good at places I've worked would complain at me all the time because I just, filling out the expense reports and the time cards and doing oh gosh, I was terrible. I am terrible at that. So what Gallup is suggesting is the way that we improve our lives is to get even better at our strengths, because all the work in the world to make me more of a detailed person is not going to improve me in the area of the things I already do well. If I want to be the best at something, maybe it's taking my strengths and enhancing those. Now, I don't know that applies to a football team. I don't know that applies to sports, but I do. Oh, Tammy's weighing in here. Yes, I dislike the tedious things. And my lovely bride is so good. She is a bulldog. She is so good at getting stuff done. And I've got a mess right outside this room right now that's been there for a month that I haven't fixed yet. That she's very patient. She keeps waiting. I got to get it done. But I'd rather be here talking to you. I'd rather be writing books and doing it. So anyway, what Gallup suggests is when you're drafting qualities, when you're going out and trying to figure out what you're going to add to your life, that we are better off to focus on our weaknesses and try to get better at the things that we're already strong at doing, and getting help from someone else, or finding a partner, or finding a resource that will help us do the things that we're not good at doing. And that's how we get better. Hey, Sherry's talking about the Michael Jordan. I haven't seen that yet. There's a lot of friends are binging that right now and absolutely loving it. He got up every morning striving to be better than yesterday. Think of what yeah. If he would have accepted average, and he, as we all know, he got cut from his high school team. What would we have missed had Michael Jordan not done that? Uh, there's a lot of folks that subscribe to the thing about 1% better. I know that's a mantra of the coach of my favorite team, the Indianapolis Colts, that Frank Reich talks about, is all we want to do is get 1% better every day. Whatever you are right now, whatever it is that you're doing, you don't have to get 100% better. Just try to be 1% better today than you were yesterday. And the cumulative effect of that is what will be significant. So I can't think of who talks about this. So I've heard too about water boils at, what is it, 212 degrees. At 211, water won't boil. But that extra 1 degree makes all the difference. So what are you going to do in your life to accent your strengths and your focus to get the other one that I love is you go out in the sun and the sun feels really good. But if you take a magnifying glass and focus the rays of the sun on one specific thing, it'll catch fire, right? So it's the focus that really makes the difference. Ken says, work on strengths, not weaknesses. Yeah, improving the defense is not going to strengthen the O-line. Ken, that's why I was saying I don't know that approach works necessarily in football. Although there are some that say, okay, so draft the best player available and you get this reservoir of players that you could then trade and get what you want. I don't know. But Charles is saying the same thing. If you have a great defense, should you pick another defensive player? And there are some, Charles, as you know, that would say, yeah, that way you're dominant on one side of the ball and you'll figure out the other stuff later. I don't know. It's one of those fascinating things. Ken, there's another way that we're alike, right? We all hate the tedious things. Yeah, or finding it for Tammy to fill our weaknesses. Hey, I've found the only one. So find your own, Tammy. So thanks, Pam. I appreciate that. So that's what we've been talking about today. I hope you've enjoyed it. We've been talking about what qualities would you draft for yourself? Well, when it comes to football, you may want a balanced team. By the way, isn't it interesting that in romance, what do we always hear? Opposites attract. I don't know. I don't know if it's because we're attracted by it or if it's because we think we balance each other out in the relationship, right? If you tend to be a little quieter and shy, you might be attracted to someone who's outgoing because together it balances out. If you are disorganized and you see somebody else who is organized, you're attracted to that because it kind of balances the team out. It's an interesting point about our relationships with other people, isn't it? But as we talked about today, we're better off to accentuate our strengths than to try to totally change and improve on our weaknesses in terms of how we'll be more positive and productive in the future. The other thing we talked about is when you're optimistic, you continue to search for even better solutions. So be optimistic. None of us here are smart enough to close our minds. I don't think any. Albert Einstein continued to search for better ways to do things, which meant he couldn't be negative. He wasn't smart enough to be negative because the intelligent choice is to be positive. Jeffrey, I think you're right here. I think there has to be a strong match in core values for any relationship to work. Yes, I totally agree. Complementary differences can make it work. But if your values aren't aligned, it's really, really hard to make things work. Deborah, Tammy, by the way, notice what hair color Deb is when she said Tammy is a blonde, which is why you have fun. Blondes have more fun. Yeah. Did you see the meme that's going around that says, I don't know about coronavirus, but blondes are disappearing the longer we're quarantined? So, yeah, there you go. Charles, yeah, we're talking about individuals. Yeah, you're exactly right. Ken says Jill and Ken both need a Tammy. Yeah, don't we all? That's so good. Hey, everybody, think about it. Remember to stay positive and optimistic. It opens your mind and helps you consider more alternatives. And I think when you consider more alternatives, you get to a better solution. We'll talk more tomorrow about going beyond the first right answer. And we've talked about how you work on your strengths. I hope you've enjoyed today. It's always great being here with you. I look forward to talking to you again tomorrow at the same time, right here for another episode of Daily Distinction. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again tomorrow.